Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. As always, good to be here. Nice to see you, Lindsay. How was your weekend?
Well, we got tricked. We got a nice day on the East Coast on Saturday, and now Monday.
Gorgeous weekend.
Yeah, Sunday was
Freezing cold
nice.
today.
It's freezing. I can't. I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with the weather.
Yes, aren't we all?
Coming up on Rising, OpenAI has struck a deal with the Pentagon after a battle with one of the tech company's competitors, Anthropic.
Plus, a tragic mass shooting took place in Austin, Texas, and officials say the gunman was wearing clothing that had an Iranian flag design.
And Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna is calling on President Trump to testify on Jeffrey Epstein after former President Bill Clinton's cooperation. But first, Robby, what is on your radar?
Well, we'll move rapidly to the news at hand. Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. The extremist authoritarian leader of Iran was killed over the weekend as a result of Israeli-U.S. strikes on the Iranian government ordered by President Donald Trump after the hostile regime declined to submit to American demands that they stop pursuing nuclear capabilities with which they could attack us or our allies. Now, Americans have every right to question the endgame here, and while we would all like for the Iranian regime to fall and be replaced by a democratic pro-Western government, we do need to temper our expectations. I have a lot of questions for Trump about how this fits in with the America First agenda and what the strategy is to truly free Iran from tyrants. Now, you probably have questions as well, and that's appropriate. We've been down this road before, many times in the Middle East. Now, here was Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth talking about this morning.
Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. It is Tuesday morning. Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
A good cold Tuesday morning, but I saw the alert on the weather app that we're getting in the 70s next week in D.C. I don't know about y'all back at home, but that makes me very happy. I know it makes you extremely happy, so you can show all those pearly whites.
A lot of back and forth weather in the last few days.
The dramatic change is not great.
It was snowing yesterday. I got snowed on. I was walking to lunch. I don't usually go to a fancy lunch, but I went to a fancy lunch yesterday. A friend of mine had his mother visiting from England.
Oh, wow.
And we took a walk, and it snowed on us.
A friend of yours decided to introduce you to his mother?
Yeah,
no,
we like to meet the
joking.
moms. We like to meet the moms.
I'm
my
joking,
mom
Robby.
comes to town, you can meet her. It's a lot.
I want to be invited to dinner with your mom. She's come to town twice already, I think, since I've been here.
Yeah.
All right, the third one I want to be invited. Coming up on Rising, Secretary of State Marco Rubio faced heat for his comments on the Trump administration's rationale for striking Iran.
Plus, First Lady Melania Trump made history by taking the gavel at the United Nations Security Council, but some on the left weren't happy about that or anything else in their lives.
And the Department of Education hung a banner of the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk, which really sparked some online debate. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
Oh, I am so entertained. The House Oversight Committee released more than 8 hours of testimony yesterday depicting Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying as to their relationship or lack thereof with Jeffrey Epstein. Guess what? I spent my entire evening watching it. The entire thing, the whole thing. I popped some popcorn, I uncorked a bottle of wine, I adjusted the speed to 2 times faster, and I took it all in. And I was highly entertained, as I said. Mostly by Hillary, who I'll turn to in a minute. But as for Bill Clinton, the former president, who's almost 80 years old and, to be clear, is very much showing his age, which he acknowledged, he had flown on Epstein's plane at least 17 times. He denied, however, ever visiting Epstein's island or having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes or participating in any illicit activity with underage girls, though he did admit he received a back rub from a flight attendant on one of the flights. Now, probably the biggest news was that Bill Clinton stated unequivocally under oath and on the record that he spoke to Donald Trump about Epstein in the early 2000s and that Bill Clinton has no reason to believe Trump knew anything about Epstein's crimes, nor was Trump involved in Epstein's crimes in any way. Clinton stated that Trump said they had a falling out over land deal. Take a look.
I hate this, but because I don't believe I should inject anything. But I do not want to leave the impression, since there was no follow-up question. The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either. He just didn't. He just said we were friends, and then we had a falling out over a land deal, property deal.
Hillary Clinton's deposition was also informative. Hillary came across as very sharp and intelligent, candid, and I say that as someone who was utterly opposed to her candidacy for president and has openly criticized her as a political figure for years. I even appreciated Hillary getting a little feisty with Lauren Boebert, who shared a photo of Clinton at the deposition publicly on social media, despite an order that this be a closed-door hearing. And that irritated Clinton because Clinton, had pressed for a public hearing, so it's understandable that she wanted those rules followed since Comer opted for a private hearing. Take a look.
Photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how that
I'm
can
done
occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was,
It doesn't
Excuse
matter.
me.
We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well,
I would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah.
Honestly, I see Clinton's point, but the deposition did continue, and now the entire video is available for your perusal. For her part, Clinton denied ever meeting Epstein even once. She said that while she wanted to be helpful to the committee, she had absolutely no information to offer them. She answered the same questions over and over again for 4 hours. She didn't meet Epstein. She didn't know about his crimes. Please direct your inquiries to the Department of Justice. Hillary also got, to be fair, the better of Representative Nancy Mace, who tried to grill the former First Lady about her relationship with Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, someone Clinton met because Lutnick's firm had lost hundreds of people on 9/11. Mace tried to suggest that through Lutnick, Clinton had some kind of Epstein fundraising connection, but Clinton pointed out that connection would be between Lutnick and Epstein, not between Clinton and Epstein, so probably they should ask him about it.
You asked the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now you're gonna yell
This
at
was
me?
what I spent
You're
my
going to yell at
time
me.
doing.
I'm a
I
survivor
spent
trying to look out for other
Well,
survivors, trying to
and
get to the
I
bottom
was
of it.
taking care
You
of
waited
the
6
people
months
who
to
lost
get here today.
3,000
6 months,
lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
indignant today.
You asked me
I have
about
met
Howard
with Epstein
Lutnick.
survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that Jeffrey Epstein, that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did
but
not.
Howard Lutnick was
If
used
you
to
have an
get
email
money.
with me asking Jeffrey
I
Epstein
have
for
an
money,
email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeffrey Epstein and his people to raise money for
I don't
you
know about
for an event, an intimate event for you at his offices
Well,
at Chandler Fitzgerald. You're
look,
going to sit
if
here
you-
today
if you would
and
let me
and
finish.
upset
Once again, point to Hillary. Now, after sitting for 4 hours and 8 minutes, she did eventually become even more frustrated than that.
You have said that you have never been to Mr. Epstein's island. Is that correct?
You
You've
know
never
what?
been.
I am so tired of answering that question. If you have one scintilla of evidence to the contrary, put it forward. I have never been on his island, period. I've never been in his homes, his offices, his anything. So I don't know how many times you have to say the same thing over and over and over again. And I just am struggling with the relevance of all of this. But no, I never have been.
So there it is. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton answered questions for hours about what they know or what they don't know. What the Democrats are going to do next, I can guarantee you, is demand that Trump do the same. And frankly, that's what this was really about. And supporters of the president really got to start asking questions about whether this ever-expanding inquiry is about getting at the truth, or is it about looking for dirt on Trump, dirt that I do not believe exists. And Bill Clinton doesn't believe it exists either.
Okay.
Fun
well,
stuff.
It was quite entertaining, and I really appreciated the disposition of Hillary Clinton throughout the entire.
Yeah, and I say that as someone who never voted for Hillary Clinton, doesn't support Hillary Clinton, has opposed her. But I'm not alone. If you look at social media, every conservative I know is saying, okay, Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace embarrassed themselves, and she handled
Lauren
herself
Boebert in
great.
particular, because she left the meeting, and I remember she was on camera saying, like, I took that picture before it started. I was granted
What are you
permission.
doing?
So she just made up a whole lie and
Hillary
was
wanted
confident.
to be public.
Right.
They wanted the whole thing
And
public.
Lauren Boebert was so confident to then see her in the, like, we have the tape of her, like, cowering. I'm sorry, I'll delete it now. That is embarrassing. The whole thing is embarrassing.
And then Nancy Mace was like, again, an email that Lutnick sent to Epstein.
It doesn't make any sense.
And then she's like, well, but I'm a survivor, so you can't. What are you doing, lady?
Okay, now to scale back from the antics of Nancy Mace, perhaps, and Lauren Boebert. People wanted transparency. They wanted to understand in detail the connections between Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. So in my mind, that doesn't seem partisan. Also, if Lutnick may be deposed, that doesn't seem partisan to me. So if Trump is asked to be deposed next, this cannot be all in you can't make a city out of a couple of bricks that it all was leading to that happening. That can happen and we can be done with it.
That's why they did this.
No, that can happen and we can be done with it, and Robbie. We can get the same type of answers and everyone can be done. That's what we can't avoid the inevitable.
No, I know. Bill and Hillary agreed to do this to help the Democrats in their argument that they have to get Trump to do this too. I absolutely believe it. And Hillary knew she could do it confidently because she has nothing to hide. She's never met him on this front.
I don't know if they died on the sword for this. I think they did it because
they're not dying because this doesn't look bad for them.
Right. I think they did it because they were like, listen, even though we are not tied to Epstein in this way, particularly Hillary, we're still going to come forward and get this done, because if you guys are asking for anybody extremely powerful or anybody extremely well off that may have connected to Epstein in any real way that may tie into a crime, let's transparently let everyone know that is not us. And I think the president should do the same thing. And then the 2 million files left over should be released.
Yes,
and we can be done.
I agree.
So you can't be frustrated before it's complete. The law requires this to be completely seen through.
I know.
So the president should be deposed, and the 2 million pages should come out, and then we will put it to bed like you want to. If you want your goal to be reached, we have to do everything required of this investigation.
I need to say on this before we go. I found her interest. She was questioned. Again, she never met Epstein. She's never been to the island. She doesn't really know anything. But she was questioned about, and she was willing to engage this line of questioning. She thought it was interesting, too, his connections to intelligence, the possibility that a foreign government was using him. She didn't say, that's malarkey, I don't know anything about that. She said, well, if that was, that she had no information about it, but she wouldn't put it past foreign governments, basically.
Right.
So it was an interesting...
So some good information came out of this then. It was worth it.
Yes. As I've said, the intelligence stuff has always been the most fertile grounds for an Epstein inquiry, not the sex trafficking cabal, of which the evidence is slight. The intelligence stuff, the financial crimes, more solid. And yeah, man, it was like seeing a fan favorite character from a former season. God, I miss the old girl. Anyway, till the cows come home. Well, good morning, and welcome once again to Rising. We have a great show for you today. It is Wednesday morning, although all morning I was thinking it was Thursday. This is a very slow-moving, glacially moving week.
That was me last week. I was going to say we matched today.
You had some
I had some difficulties this morning.
You spilled coffee.
I spilled coffee on my
train.
dress. Luckily, it's dark. I had a nosebleed. It's because of my allergies. I am using too much Flonase.
We're fighting.
We're fighting for our lives.
Every day, fighting for you, the viewers.
And the weather, it's actually decent today, and it's going to hopefully get warmer so I don't have to suffer anymore.
I am just heartbroken that my girl, Princess Jasmine, will not be taking
What? They're still counting the ballots in Dallas. Are you nuts? They're still counting.
It's over.
We're going to talk about that. Coming up on Rising, Senator Richard Blumenthal told reporters that he fears the U.S. may be putting boots on the ground in Iran.
Plus, Texas State Representative James Tallarico defeated Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Did you hear that, Lindsay?
Jasmine Crockett still wants those Dallas ballots counted.
In the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate.
And CBS is reporting that the DOJ is removing Epstein files that were previously made public, but the DOJ argues that their analysis is flawed. But first, Robbie, what is on your radar today?
Alrighty, well, the Trump administration continues to try to sell the American people an Israeli-led U.S. strikes on Iran that have killed the Ayatollah and dozens of other high-ranking government figures, bringing a murderous and extremist regime to its knees. But some questions still remain for us, and the administration has a duty to provide answers. President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Speaker Johnson have all offered different and, at times, frankly, conflicting justifications for this war. Now, patriotic conservative Americans, MAGA, America First, whatever you want to call Trump supporters, look, there's a great deal of agreement that the Ayatollah is evil and deserves to die, and that the world will be well rid of a regime that hates America and also hates Israel. I'm following so far, but there are questions, even among the MAGA faithful, about whether this strike is in America's best interests. Now, the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh, for instance, is a leading conservative pundit and Trump supporter who's not yet sold. He's been posting on X a lot about this, even drawing a response from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. He writes, I supported the Venezuela operation and I'm on board with acquiring Greenland because they both pass the only litmus test I care about. Will it be a net benefit to the United States? Venezuela and Greenland are low risk, high reward, big wins for our people. We gain much and lose little or nothing. Easy call, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not actually an isolationist. I'm just an America First conservative in the strictest sense of the term. Does the benefit for America outweigh the cost? It must, or it's a bad policy. That's one of my absolute core political principles, always has been. But with this Iran thing, I don't see how the math works in our favor, or at least it seems highly unlikely it will work in our favor. And so I'm against it. If that puts me at odds with the administration and with much of the conservative commentariat, so be it, but I have to stick with what I believe. My take, he's got a point. Now, Trump can overcome this, but he has to actually explain what we're doing. So let's walk through it. Is this about crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities? If so, well, I thought we just did that several months ago. Did we need to decapitate the regime and blow up a school full of children to accomplish it? Or is it about regime change? If so, why does the administration keep denying that it's a regime change war? Is it just because that term in particular is so unpopular with the American people? But that is the goal? If so, that's rank dishonesty. Is it about our defense? Or is it about Israel's defense? This seems like the most actually likely explanation, but if it's just about a pressing threat to Israel and not the U.S., then surely Trump should be asking Congress to vote to approve military action. The president can act unilaterally only when the U.S. is threatened, not when some other country is threatened. Then there are questions about the duration of this conflict. Are we in it until the regime falls? Until there's new leadership we can work with? Until there's a deal in place? Until Israel says so? Are we committing ground troops? How many American servicemen are expected to die in retaliatory strikes across the globe? Should we really expect no reaction from Iranian proxy groups? From China? The administration is going to need to come up with better answers to these questions because the American people do not want us to get involved in another endless war in the Middle East for good reason. Trump ran on no new wars. Things change, but this is a new war. If he wants it, he's got to sell it, particularly to his millennial supporters who have a permanent Iraq war fatigue. I was looking at polling numbers, approval of this strike. Lowest group is people in our age range because we remember Iraq most accurately. Look, again, I've said this with so many of the military interventions Trump has undertaken this term. I am prepared to be sold. I'm not unreasonable. I also want totalitarian regimes to fall all around the globe. So sell me that this is a good idea. Sell Congress, really, is what should be happening. That's not happening. Sell me, and I'm hearing way too many different and conflicting justifications. Like, Israel was going to be attacked because they were fighting with Iran, and so we had to do something, is very different from we're trying to stop them from getting a nuke, which we hear constantly, and that just did that require killing everyone in leadership there? And we would like to see a different regime take over. I saw Trump say yesterday, like, worst case scenario, people just as bad take over after this. And I'm sorry, but that is not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is we start world war. It's like Russia or China do retaliatory nuking of us. That's the worst case scenario. Or a madman comes to power who, sends an army after Israel or something. Like, there are worst case scenarios. Are they likely? No. Maybe the Trump administration knows they're impossible, actually, but I can certainly think of worse outcomes than this. And if he thinks the worst outcome is basically this is all for naught and it's just as bad, well, okay, that's not exactly selling me on it either.
So you and I, for the audience, we do a hit on News Nation on Wednesdays, and so ours was canceled this morning because Hegseth was speaking. So I listened to Hegseth, his presser, and speaking of China and Russia, what I took away from that was that there's no intention to try to even say things that would agitate China or Russia in this moment, because a reporter asked, do you have anything to say about China and Russia being the biggest supporters of Iran being armed in this way? And they were like, our problems with Iran. So I totally get that strategically, but also when you say about expanding into a bigger conflict, America understands all three of these powers and why we wouldn't want to go that far, and why they wouldn't want to go that far. I think what I also got from that presser was that this war is nowhere near over. One thing that stuck with me is Hegseth saying this will be done when America decides it's over. And without a clear path of why it started, we're not understanding why it needs to last this long. There's also this extra layer of having a bunch of colleagues that are in the travel space, because that's another thing that I do, that are in these Middle Eastern countries, and there was no exit strategy. There are people that were given the State Department number that are calling to find out there's nothing that they can do. And I'm watching that happen to so many people that I see working, just trying to bridge the gap between cultures, that are over there trying to get back to the US. And you would think that no one needs a forewarning that you're going to attack Iran, but at least you think you would have coordinated to have an exit strategy for some of these Americans that are in several places across the Middle East that would like to get home, that you're seeing in a hysterical state right now, not understanding what's going on. Right now, we have 50,000 troops and more than 200 aircraft in Iran, and some people are not calling this a war. And I think that we need to come to terms that we have started an endless war because we're not given a date. We're getting a lot of pushback that they don't have to give a date, they don't have to give exacts. But like you said, if we're watching graves being built for more than 100 kids that were killed at a school, we need to understand that, and that was asked about in the presser too, and they said they're investigating it. And the reporter pushed back that from Saturday until now, there's no understanding of whether that was a clear target or an accident that we can respond to. And so I think there's so much confusion, that being one of the biggest things for me. Nothing wrong with taking out a dictator and authoritarian that was killing civilians, but there is a whole other layer of now being engaged in this conflict where we're watching innocent people being killed with no clear understanding of what capabilities were there, when obviously the nuclear capabilities were obliterated last summer. So there was no imminent threat. But now we're understanding that Israel had a plan to attack Iran to protect themselves, and Iran might have struck back, and that's why the U.S. felt like they needed to get involved. And so, there's a lot of conversation around what that means for the future of how we figure out international conflict, if it has to do with what other countries want to do.
Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. I know how much our viewers love us discussing the weather here in D.C. It is a foggy, misty day, but I enjoyed scooting here on my scooter
did?
for the first time.
How could you see?
Weeks. Well, I don't need to see. I know these sidewalks and roads like the back of my hand.
I really worry about you on the
crack and
scooter.
crevice.
It's crossed my mind a couple times.
Well, I've only fallen off like 5 times.
Yes, and you told me hit my car doors and yeah, it's a lot of things.
I'm glad to be doing it again. I finally got my scooter back because it had been stolen for the second time.
Did you put a tracker on it?
Yes. So if it gets stolen again,
Investigator Robby on the
there
scene.
will be hell to pay. I will track you down. I will.
Do you mind telling him in the comments that's not a smart idea? I've already done that.
I will punch you for sport.
Coming up on Rising, a House Oversight Committee panel has voted to subpoena Attorney General Pam Bondi to testify about her handling of the Epstein files.
Plus, Minnesota Governor Tim Walsh testified Wednesday on Capitol Hill as part of a probe into his state's fraud scandal, and we're going to dig into that.
And HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that Dunkin', Starbucks, and other companies need to prove that their ingredients are safe, but some were not happy about that. But first, Robby, I know you have a lot to say about that one, but what's on your radar?
I wasn't happy about that. Not happy about this either. Now, one of President Trump's favorite pastimes is bashing the media, and his White House keeps that tradition alive no matter the circumstances. See, for example, Caroline Leavitt tearing into CNN's Caitlin Collins after the host asked about Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth bashing the media for covering American deaths to the strikes in Iran. Here was that exchange.
That's what these. Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed. That's not what the secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not. We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more. Drones get through, or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad. Yeah, as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president. The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot.
Now, I like to make fun of CNN as much as anybody else on the right, but here's the thing. Americans are dying as a result of Trump's decision to condone Israeli attacks that have killed Iranian leader Ayatollah Khamenei and decimated the leadership of the country. Iranians have fired missiles in response as their terrorist proxies are expected to carry out attacks, and we're not going to ignore our dead because it's inconvenient for the administration. To Colin's point, CNN has always covered American war deaths, and so have all other news networks. That's because it's important. Those deaths matter. They matter in their own right, and they should affect how we feel about this war effort, a war that was never voted on, nor even sold to the American people. We were simply informed it was happening after the fact. So yes, the media is going to ask the Secretary of War to justify American soldiers losing their lives, no matter how annoying that might be. The lives of our servicemen and women matter. Take, for instance, Declan Cody, a 20-year-old member of the Army Reserves who was killed in Kuwait on Sunday. Breaking Point's host Sagar Enjeti notes that Cody was a 20-year-old kid with his whole life ahead of him. He was born 4 or 5 years after 9/11 and died fighting in another war in the Middle East. He's not the first, and he won't be the last. Yes, sacrifices are made during war, and the brave men and women who put their lives on the line for our freedoms, they knew what they were signing up for. But we need to consider how many American lives we're willing to spend in pursuit of what goal precisely? Regime change? An end to Iran's nuclear ambitions? Israel's sense of security? What is it? The administration did not bother seeking our permission or Congress's permission to take these steps, so you better bet that the White House is going to have to field questions about it. You know, and I'm usually with them to bash mainstream media or whoever it is about unfair coverage, but that's such a cope in this case. It's not unfair. Americans are dying. American soldiers are dying who would not have come under attack except for this strike. That doesn't mean the strike is not worth doing. They signed up for this job, and we're going to lose lives in pursuit of reasonable strategic aims of the United States. But they're going to be asked about it, and they're going to be asked about it particularly because this was never justified to the American people. We were never sold on it. We were never walked through it. It was never voted on. So of course they're going to get questions, and their justifications are contradictory. So I was pretty irritated with her going into full CNN is out to get me kind of self-pitying nonsense.
That's the biggest thing. The answers are all over the place as to why we're actually in this war. And a big question is where it's going. So, you know, not only did we talk about a little bit of the chaos of the people that are in the Middle East, whether it's for work or travel, that have a response after the fact when it's become chaos and they don't know how to get home. That's one instance. NATO's now involved completely because there was that ballistic missile that was headed towards Turkey. So now you got other countries involved. The whole Middle East is involved because they're trying to attack directly bases all over the Middle East that are hitting civilian targeted areas like Amazon and Dubai, the faculty. And so it's just a lot. The State Department is now telling people at all these bases to head back. And so we are just in a state of chaos across the world. It's really caused a decision, like you said, that we didn't vote on or wasn't sold to the American people is now affecting the entire world. And also, I read in the New York Times today that regime change, if that is the goal, because again, we don't know what we're fighting for and have one accord about what that is also not likely because Ayatollah's son is actually who's being considered by the Iranian clerics to take the leadership role. So how does that change? How far is the son going to stray from what his dad wanted to do? And then we talked about the cost of American lives. Obviously, that is the biggest deal. And 20 years old was just tragic to hear somebody that young for something that wasn't explained to us. But there's also an actual cost to the idea that we are going to be in this embroiled conflict with Iran is the cost to the American people, which is not as important as American lives, but the gas prices have already gone up 20 cents from last week. So oil prices are already affected. And so when we look at the actual cost to American lives and then the actual real cost to the wallets of the Americans who wanted America first, a lot of people have questions, not just Caitlin Collins. The whole country has questions about who does this benefit, what was this for, and what's the game plan and the strategy? Because there's chaos rippling throughout the country. And I think these are fair, nonpartisan questions that have to be answered with some kind of uniformity because there's this actual fear of the state of the country right now. You can see different people, the way they're communicating and talking about this because of the lack of leadership that's succinct. And I think that fear is warranted because a war without a cause or understanding leaves everybody to feel a little more vulnerable than they did a week ago.
Yeah. I talked to my mother on the phone yesterday. Hadn't spoken to her in a while. She'd been on vacation, traveling. And first thing she asked me was like, do you guys feel safe in D.C.? I'm
Right.
like, what are you talking about? She meant because of, are we going to face retaliatory military action as the nation's capital? This kind of stuff, it's on people's minds. Again, we got into this without any explanation of where it goes. You say maybe the Ayatollah's son's going to take over. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. What do they know? Have they thought through this?
Well, then there's this whole other layer that Iran is actually trying to negotiate a deal. Again, this is according to the New York Times. They indirectly reached out to the CIA about it. And so I want to know exactly what that deal looks like, because again, you talk about how the president hated Obama's deal. So I'd like to see the exact elements in this deal that make it so drastically different, other than not compiling what's necessary to create a nuclear bomb, because that was in the deal that Obama had.
Well, what's different is Trump gets to put his name on this deal.
Right, but the big difference is that now we've lost 6 and counting Americans because Trump wanted to put his name on it.
Yeah.
And so that's the real tragedy.